Welcome back to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3. Nick Constantino here, and we are talking NFL with Mr. Brian Finneran, the digital legacy of the greatest NFL Madden player that ever existed to be, and I quote, overpowered Finneran. So the most important question I have for you, had to deal with Nike. Did those Nike shoes make it into the Madden game when you were catching your touchdowns from Michael Vick? Did you have those Nike shoes on? Did they make a good investment in that sense?
That's a great question. I almost have to go look at a Nike a Madden picture or in-game process, because I would imagine if they're going to do what they're supposed to do, and Nike would probably want a piece of that.
You would imagine. And that's why I ask. I would say you're completely right. Fantasy was huge. But Madden football, the video game, probably had such an impact on what the NFL became and was, just because how many people played it and how many people got their introduction to it. I remember that Madden soundtrack was one of the most important things on earth, dude. I still listen to songs that I only heard of because they were on the Madden soundtrack. So I think those are a couple of lifestyle things that were going adjacent at the same time. I think that the marketing piece was huge. I think that the advent of fantasy, which, I mean, we could have a whole 2-hour discussing just on gambling, because anyone that plays fantasy, I'd be worried if I were the fantasy guys, because you know what's even more fun? Futures betting and sports betting in real time. I love fantasy, don't get me wrong, but my fantasy world went awry when last season as a Giants fan, I was rooting for Jalen Hurts to do something, and I was like, oh my God, I have to stop this.
Right.
This is
Fantasy is just the beginning to jump into something a lot more
I don't want to say gateway drug because I don't completely believe in that nonsense, but let's call it what it is. So Tripp has joined us.
Yes.
So Tripp was, I think he was on the NFL field and he was playing some football and he got tackled hard. Now he's joining the conversation.
Now I'm limping slowly into
Now he's limping slowly over. All right, so we're talking NFL. We're talking how we've got here. So I'm going to cover a couple of points from my notes. Let's talk about you said this about the guys dressing similarly and everyone being, let's talk about the influence on American values. Let's talk about the Maddens of the world and Monday Night Football. Let's talk about when you were playing, what are some of the things your coaches were telling you? What were your managers telling you about just how big the NFL was, and what things were they doing to try to set up this marketing behemoth that they've created?
You know, it's always been, they always say it's like about the shield, the NFL logo, and it really has been for a long time. And it goes back, kind of goes down from there, the shield to your team and your helmet and the logo on your helmet and the name on the front of your chest. And then after that, kind of the back of your jersey where your name is. So if you can buy into the program, buy into what they're selling you, and then build your own brand yourself by playing well, by being in the around the team and the community, and letting people understand, especially big companies, because every big company in and around Metro Atlanta wants to be involved with the Falcons, especially when they're good. And then if you can develop those relationships with those teams and those companies, then you have an opportunity to build your brand a little bit and make it happen. So I always made it a point to do the community stuff. Go to the little elementary schools and read books during our days off, or stop by the Children's Hospital and visit the sick kids when we can do that. So we had in our contract with the Falcons and every NFL team, you have to hit a certain amount of appearances for the team, and a lot of people go above and beyond, but there are little stipulations and rules where you have to be out there and be public and see people. And the more you can do it, I mean, I work for 680 The Fan now because I was very friendly in the locker room. I wasn't afraid to talk to guys after games and during training camp, and built a bit of a reputation and relationships with the people around here.
Yeah,
Sports Talk Radio.
And you were in what they would call one of the glamour positions. So, I mean, that was almost an expectation more of all those guys. You know, no one wants to see the offensive lineman, as amazing as they are and as gigantic. And the fact that a guy that big can run a 4.5 40 has never, I mean, that is the most incredible feat of athleticism that anybody can see. But they want to talk to the receivers and the running backs.
You'd be surprised, and that's partially true. The Falcons had a rule, and it was an old coach, Alex Gibbs, just a pain in the ass offensive line coach, was coaching the league for 40 plus years, I think. Just looked like this little curmudgeon guy that's been in the sun too long and had an anger streak to him. But when I tell you he could coach linemen, so he had rules with his line that only one guy could speak every week to the media, and they kind of rotated. So they lived and died by it, but it brought them all closer.
Yeah.
And we had an unbelievable unit. We led the league in rushing like 2 out of 3 years in a row with that group, but it also limited what those linemen can do for themselves branding-wise and marketing ability. It really shut them down. And we had some real characters in that offensive line room that didn't get a chance to put themselves out there in the locker room through television or radio because Their coach pretty much had him shut down and locked down.
But there was a protocol, let's call it, that I don't sense. I think it's harder for coaches, general managers, etc., to have any type of protocol. The community stuff, I think, continues. That's my sense. Everyone wants to do that. But on the personal branding, today it seems like it's a little more free for all, and with whether it's NIL and all the other stuff coming up, the athletes today have a different perspective maybe than you did.
Yeah, you're probably right, and there's so many opportunities out there to go get something. And I just lucked in. We were talking about the AirTran deal I had earlier for about like 6 years, just free flights all over the country. As long as there were seats on the plane, we can get them. First class or back of the bus, didn't matter. And I could put 10 people on a list, and mostly family members, that if they wanted to get on a flight and come see us play, and there's an open seat, they could do it. And I only got that deal because they already had Michael Vick, they already had Warwick Dunn, they already had Keith Brooking.
Oh my God! They had to hit a quota. Too many black guys.
And they wanted one more guy. Watch out! They wanted one more guy, and they asked the head marketing guy, Jim Smith at the time. I think he's with the Braves now, if I'm not mistaken. So they went to Jim and they said, "Who do you think we should get?" And I had a couple of good seasons in a row, and I felt I was a pretty good guy, nice everybody in the building. And they said, "You should sit down with Finn and talk to him." So I had a meeting with a couple of bigwigs at AirTran, just had lunch with them downtown. We worked out a little deal, and next thing you know, I'm getting free AirTran flights for the next 6 years. Billboards up all over town, and it was exit 86 on 85 south heading towards the airport. You could just see it. It's really cool. So
what I love is the fact that you were on television already, but you were so happy to see yourself on a billboard. So you hear that guy's advertising works. I don't care what anyone says.
True.
This dude's playing in the NFL on TV with millions of people, right? But the ego's happier to see himself on a billboard. One of the things, and Tripp, I think you're right, but if you look, I see the NFL gravitating a little bit more back to what Finn was talking about. If you see the wide receivers are trying to get together, not on the same team, just the wide receivers are trying to get the tight ends have done it. I think it was Travis Kelce and George Kittle and Greg Olsen that ran this tight end camp where they were trying to get everybody together. Now, that's probably because of contract negotiations and CBA, because I feel like the NFL is a little behind on the contract stuff because the NFL has so much power over here. But I think you see that in one of the positions, linemen are all about cohesiveness as a unit. Like, number one is quarterback and receiver. I don't think anyone would argue that. I would say two, above defense and the captain of a defense, is that offensive line. When you're pulling, and the way that they're zone blocking nowadays, if you're making the wrong thing and you're not cohesive in a unit and covering each other, you're screwed.
Yeah, I'd put offensive line first just because of that. I mean, if one guy messes up and goes the wrong way, the play is dead. So at least if you block for a little while, the quarterback can find one of his options. So it really does start up front, and that it's kind of a cliche.
Yeah,
but it is so true. And those guys, when we made it to, when the Falcons made it to the Super Bowl in 2016, I think, and when we made it to the NFC title game, we had all 5 of our linemen played in every single game.
That'll do it.
And you make that run because they know each other so well and they work so well together, and you protect the quarterback, and then obviously the other things they do.
With that, and you hear a lot these days, I think the NBA, even the last 20 years, has gone the total opposite. I mean, the stories about when they're not in the building, everyone's off on their own. How does that, when you're not in the building today, in the NFL?
No, in the NFL, it's great. I made it a point to make sure the quarterback was my best friend, whether we had things in common or different walks of life or whatever. I just knew that my whole career was going to depend on that quarterback finding me and counting on me being where I'm supposed to be. And if I could also, on top of that, become really good friends with him, room with him during training camp, be around him as much as possible, go to extra meetings after practice and see how we look. So that relationship was huge. Matt Ryan, when he came to Atlanta, and I was hanging on for dear life late in my career, I just came off 2 ACL injuries and missed 2 years in a row. And Matt comes in as young rookie, and he happened to move into my neighborhood, and I made a point to invite him over. We watched playoff hockey games together this time of year when it's kind of dead. We'd go and work out together. We played a little golf together. So you make it a point to develop those friendships, and I did it because I needed all the help I can get because as Madden said, or whatever this guy talking about, overpowered Finneran. Those are the relatively modest real-life NFL stats. I need all the help I could get.
See, I knew starting with that would lead to some good conversations. So let's change pace a little bit. So one of the things I think about anything growing is this becomes perpetual, right? All of a sudden now when they start seeing the economic impact, like when you talk about a Falcons game now, the amount of people that are coming into town, booking hotel rooms, filling these stadiums, the cultural significance. I mean, man, you drive past this city skyline and Mercedes-Benz looks like a city in itself. If you were coming from out of town and see that, you're like, oh my, it's the skyline. The Mercedes-Benz Stadium is the skyline. So talk a little bit about that impact and that societal impact. When you were around, did people recognize you? Were you sitting for meals? I mean, watching the community get behind these teams is unbelievable. And look, you have a helmet on, so they don't always see you without your helmet.
Right. No,
but talk about that a little bit.
It's funny. I'll walk into different places and people realize who I am after that we talk for a little bit or somebody says something to them, and then they try to apologize for not knowing who I am. And it's like, you might know me if I had my helmet and my jersey on. But
or you read The Digital Legacy of Brian Finneran, the well-written article.
But you're sure as hell not going to know who I am when I just walk in street clothes and looking like I look. So,
but is some of that, compared to 20 years ago, there are so many more on-field experiences, the VIP passes with X number of people get to be, on the field during warm-ups, X number of people get to be out at the national anthem, all these things that, I mean, there were probably a few, but my sense is, it's 10 times what it used to be.
They fuel each other. Because you have all that sponsorship revenue, you start doing those things. Because you're doing those things, you make sponsorship revenue. And I think the NFL, and look, I'm not going to make Goodell bot the savior of all this, but Goodell saw a lot of this stuff and laid a lot of this stuff out, and it becomes perpetual. It just starts rolling over. Because now, what did they just approve? $2 billion to build a stadium in Jacksonville? Like literally one of the worst teams in the NFL that nobody cares about. They just signed a quarterback that might be in the third tier of quarterback that they just signed him to $250 million
He's
contract.
better than that.
I'm just playing. I like Trevor. I love Trevor Lawrence a lot. I'm just trying to rile. I'm just trying to shake it up a little bit. But honestly, you see the significance of it.
I'll say this: the Georgia Dome was an unbelievable place to play, especially when Blank dropped that thing down to $10 a ticket a game. For $100, you can get into every single game in that thing. So you open it up to so many different walks of life and different people.
But just that alone is insane. Because now, to get in the stadium, you're talking $200 to even show up. So that is, talk just for a second. Talk about that. Talk about Blank and his impact in the community, because that's a huge thing.
Dick Sullivan is, I think it must have been his marketing guy at the time when he first bought the Falcons. Dick Sullivan runs all the PGA Tour Superstores now, I believe. But at the time, Dick was working for Arthur Blank, and they came up with this idea to get people excited about Falcon football again and get them inside the building with $10 seats, 10 games, $100 a season for multiple seats in the upper deck. That way you can get people filled in. And it kind of bled down in the lower level too, where they're a little bit cheaper. But you're trying to build some excitement and get some people going. We had come off a couple bad years when Jamal Anderson got hurt, and then they just come off that Super Bowl run in 98, 99, 2000, 2001. We got a little better, I guess. 02 was Vic's year, and 04 make the NFC title game. So it was interesting how it kind of all worked out. But it's fascinating when you think about where it starts and then where it goes to. But I was thinking about this year and changing from the Georgia Dome, which is kind of this, just kind of a, I love playing there. That was where I played every single one of my home games for the Falcons. But it was just a place, you know? It was never doctored up. It was never sexy on the outside. The inside seats were garbage until Blank made them all red, and then it really looked like something. And then you build this unbelievable facility in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, like you talk about, part of the skyline now. You see when you drive up, the glass and the retractable roof and all the different things go into it. You got people that want to come see it. There's
it's
teams
the place
coming
to be.
Oh, plus you got teams that are coming in this year. It's unfortunate, but when I tell you Kirk Cousins' first game against the Pittsburgh Steelers in our building,
There'll be more Steelers fans there.
It's going to be 50-50 Falcons Steelers, and you're going to see terrible towels swaying. And if we don't win that game, it's going to be ugly and nasty. It's not going to feel good. And then we go to Philly, I think, and have to deal with them on a Monday night or something, Sunday night. And then we come back and got the Chiefs, the Super Bowl champions, who haven't played down here. And
the Cowboys are coming, the Giants are coming.
So you have all these helmets and all these different, what is it I'm looking for? The
logos.
Logos of these different teams where people have not come to watch a game in Mercedes-Benz, and they're going to come watch it.
So talk about that, and then let's say the season ticket investment, and what's that line of how passionate is the city, and then are you willing to sell? And so I've done the opposite. I grew up as a Packer fan, family, daughter up there, and
That's
all
awesome.
that. So I've been there when it's 50-50, yellow and green at the Dome, and but.
At our place, yes.
Yeah,
of course.
exactly. Yeah, no. Yeah, up there, it's
not.
But how does that, sway in of getting people enough to be totally invested versus, you know what, I sell two games, one to the Steeler fans, one to the Cowboy fans, and I make up 80% of my season ticket package.
I'm on the air with home team Brandon Leak, and they call him home team because he's been around here a long time. I think he went to Dunwoody, grew up in Decatur, went to Morehouse. And he's a lifer. He loves every team in every city. He has season tickets to the Falcons games. And I think it was the Bears were coming in town or somebody, and he had an opportunity to sell his season tickets for that game and probably make almost all of his stuff back for the season, at least half of it, the cost of his tickets. And I got into him. I said, if you sell those, because I was a huge fan of the team, and I said, if you sell those tickets, you no longer get to be called home team.
Selling out, yeah.
And
I agree.
when I tell you, we almost came to it because of the passion he had for the team, but the finances that he was looking at. So it's an interesting take. I think Matt Ryan said it best he went to go speak to the team the other day and then got surprised with the Ring of Honor induction. And he talked to the team about what it means to be an Atlanta Falcon and what it means to play in this city. And he said the one thing about being in Atlanta is you have to earn it. And if you can earn their fandom and their passion and everything else, it's tough to beat. But it's also hard to do because you got to win a lot and you have to do it on a consistent basis.
You got to be top of mind for such a long time.
Right.
That's one thing I learned about this city. The attention spans are short. There's so much going on. And I think, look, we got about 5-6 minutes left in this segment. What I want to talk about is Atlanta. So obviously you've been on air on 680 Fan now for a decade plus. Okay, so you saw a town just coming off the Olympics grow into this behemoth that this city is now. And let's be clear, the Olympics were here, but most people outside the country were only aware of Atlanta because of that. And now all of a sudden you are a cultural hub where everything that's happening in this country is coming here. From the shoots in LA, all the LA people are moving here and they're sitting here, and I've interacted
Hollywood
with them
stuff,
and they're sitting here and they're looking, they go, why in God's name would I go back to Los Angeles? Like, the weather is not that much better. The traffic is worse. The pollution is worse. Why would I go back? The lifestyle, they like it. But anyway.
I'm from Orange County, an hour south of LA. The weather is much better. This 3 months of summer here, drag into more. Like, it's going to be 97 degrees today and miserable. Okay, I get it.
You get the 60-degree.
You pay for the weather. You pay for the weather.
And I spend my time in San Diego. I completely agree with you. You pay for the weather. But I'm saying, compared to going from LA to going to Minnesota, the weather here is palpable. Okay, you could. But talk about just what you saw the city grow, and talk about into your now radio career. I mean, just for some context, we're doing 180 advertisers a month, and you're dealing with all kinds of businesses and people, and you're at Falcons events, and you're at other. Just talk about what you've seen the city grow, just from a marketing base and from a business standpoint.
Yeah, the Hollywood film industry that's blown up here has been fascinating to see that take place. It's been pretty cool to see these giant warehouses for Amazon and UPS or whatever else you want to throw in there that have shown up recently and just continue to build and continue to do that. Says a lot. I think all the different giant companies that are downtown filling up these buildings again. Was it NPR? Is that right? What's the
NCR?
NCR. Thank you. That got that big building a couple years ago. NPR. Jesus.
Yeah.
NCR.
Public radio is doing pretty well if they got that building.
That's right. So, you notice it. I think you have the brands that will stick around forever and just resonate to no end, which is Delta and Chick-fil-A and Waffle House and those ones. But it's been fun to watch it grow. I wish it would slow down a little bit so people stop moving in and around my neighborhood. But so far, it's been quite a boom in the last 25 years that I've been here.
I'm going to use this word only because of Nick, but I think it's the boroughs that have really popped up, right? And I think when I first came here in '88, to Emory, and so I think it was, there was a little bit of Midtown, there was Buckhead.
Can we call them pockets? Yeah. The borough of Queens by itself is 5 times the size of city of Atlanta. So let's call them pockets. Let's not go boroughs.
But I think that's changed. I mean, downtown has become something now. I mean, you've got, to your point, with the the film industry. I mean, the South Side, what it's done for that. We know what the North Side has been, and it just keeps. I mean, it's out in South Carolina now, I think. But I think that's been the biggest thing, is how there's these vibrant areas of the city nowadays. You can go in, you can go out, and that's changed in my.
And I think that even the stadiums create that stuff. Mercedes-Benz Stadium, Castleberry Hill is an awesome neighborhood that existed because of the stadium. They're building those hotels, the reverb and all those hotels around the stadium. It's one of the things they know. These stadiums create economic impact on with multipliers.
No question.
When they fix downtown, and we've been saying it now for years, the Gulch gets redone. When they fix that stuff, could you imagine what that's going to look like? Can you imagine the lore? I mean, we've been doing our tailgates at 123 Marietta now for 10 years. In any city in America, you're not getting that real estate. We're half a mile from the stadium in the prime corner that we were able to finagle our way into that lot. Watch it grow around and what it's going to look like. And again, I think one of the problems is those pockets also have extended further out. A lot of people are moving to Roswell, so it stops the economic impact of downtown. But I think when people see what the vision's going to be, and you have these people that want to invest in it. I mean, Arthur Blank is a great example of a guy who invests in the communities. I mean, God, his name's on a hospital now that's going to be 600 beds.
That whole scene, and you can think of whatever you want of Arthur Blank as a football owner, but as a philanthropist and what he's done for this city alone is amazing. And glad you brought up that hospital. I drove by it last night on the way home from the airport, and I just left an event in Chicago for the is it Ann and Robert Lurie and their Children's Hospital Miracle Network. What they do up there, we raised like $1.7 million up there on Monday in a golf deal with Kevin Butler. But anyway, I'm driving by it, and in September, they're moving the entire hospital in one day from one location to the new one that Arthur has built, and I can guarantee it's going to be night and day compared to the old one, and it's not even probably that old.
Yeah, and you see that name you're driving through, but the economic impact, again, understanding that was 60 acres of mixed real estate and all these things that they took. And I know, ironically, because the townhouse I lived in when I moved here was on the property line, and the amount of money they spent to buy that all out, and that is all in Arthur's name, and it is amazing, the legacy. And I think, as a football owner, Arthur Blank has been involved, but he's running multiple businesses. He's trying to empower the people to make decisions and do certain things, right? At the same time, what is your legacy going to be? And in my head, I don't believe Arthur Blank's perceived legacy is going to be the football team. And I know that sounds crazy. Because
I hope you're wrong, because we need a championship, but you're probably more, the probability is probably in your favor, where I'll probably remembered more around the city of Atlanta as opposed to inside that.
I think it's a lasting legacy, and it's not a criticism, but look, it's hard to
you win a title, it'll be football.
It's hard to beat somebody like Ted Turner just as a legacy of an owner in this town, and that was luck, right? He also owned TBS, so he got the Braves to spread everywhere and the behemoth. So I think more, but look, this has been a great conversation. We're going to finish up with talking a little future predictions about the NFL and where it's going, which is anybody's guess, because how many times have we counted the NFL out? During COVID, we're like, people are going to stop watching. They're kneeling. No one's going to watch. And it's like, cool, man.
So funny, dude.
I'll give you my thoughts on Kaepernick at a different time, what I think actually happened
off
the air. But you've been listening to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3. We'll be right back, and we are in the dead middle of season 4, ladies and gentlemen. Check us out on social media handles everywhere. Marketing Madmen.